Hi, everyone. The trial of former Volkswagen CEO Martin Winterkorn has gotten underway, showing that nearly a decade later, Dieselgate is still teaching us valuable lessons about speak up culture. I'm your host, Bill Coffin, and this is the Ethicast. On September 3rd, Martin Winterkorn, the former chief executive officer for German automaker Volkswagen, went on trial in Germany to face charges of perjury, market manipulation, and commercial fraud related to VW's 2015 Dieselgate scandal. The 77-year-old Winterkorn, who stepped down as CEO almost immediately after the scandal broke, denies the charges, but if found guilty, he could face up to 10 years in prison. Dieselgate is perhaps VW's biggest modern crisis when, in 2015, the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency accused the company of installing so called defeat devices on diesel cars they manufactured and sold. Defeat devices were essentially illegal software for cars so that when they were in a lab setting, they produced false diesel emissions data to give the appearance that they were running cleaner than they really did. The devices were installed as part of a push to sell cars in North America as clean diesel, as well as to abide by EU diesel emission standards. Following the EPA's accusation, it came out that VW had in fact installed defeat devices in some 11 million vehicles globally since 2006, including vehicles from VW subsidiary brands such as Audi, Porsche, Seat, and Skoda. The scandal enormously wounded VW's reputation, and as of June 2020, had cost the company more than $33 billion in fines, penalties, financial settlements, and buybacks. But that is still not the end of it, as various government and civil actions are still underway, with Winterkorn's criminal trial being just one of them. One might wonder why, exactly, the former CEO is being tried now, 9 years after the scandal. After all, it's not like prosecutors didn't already have their case. Winterkorn was indicted in 2019, and his trial, originally scheduled for 2021, was postponed due to Winterkorn's health issues. But that still doesn't fully explain why the wheels of justice, no pun intended, have turned so slowly here. The reason might be because German authorities want it that way. In 2016, I visited VW's headquarters in Wolfsburg, Germany, on behalf of Compliance Week magazine. My task was to interview VW's new compliance and integrity leadership, which was spearheading an ambitious reboot of the company's compliance function, code of conduct, and speak up policy amid the immediate Dieselgate aftermath. Since that reboot of VW's compliance and integrity programs, no small amount of content has documented the company's substantial compliance and integrity rebound. When I visited in 2016, however, the company was in a peculiar state. Because of the actions of a fairly small number of people, a global enterprise of more than 615,000 employees was reeling from a massive scandal. And when I asked my hosts what they thought the future would hold for the organization, their concern was not so much the inevitable monetary costs that would come from it, which they all acknowledged would be very substantial. No, the big thing I was told by various people was that Volkswagen hadn't just dishonored itself, but all of Germany by extension. And that would evoke a particularly challenging future to navigate. You see, the company saw itself as a brand ambassador for its home country, and its home country felt likewise. When German companies make a misstep this large, I was told, they could expect a very long and drawn out transit through the German legal system as an extended reminder of the price of misconduct. Forcing an organization to live with such a drawn out punishment process serves two purposes. The first is to exact a toll from the culprit, whatever its final civil and criminal penalties may be. And the second is to deter every other company in Germany from making the same kind of mistake. The time horizon of Volkswagen's legal journey due to Dieselgate is something that made a very big impression on me. When you visit Wolfsburg, it's very clearly a company city. On one side of the river is the VW headquarters, with an enormous light up logo clearly visible from the other side of the river, where pretty much the rest of the city is located. I got the sense that nobody in Wolfsburg was more than 3 degrees of separation from VW. Everyone there either worked for the company, worked for a business that served those who worked for VW, or knew someone from either of those first two categories. Walking through Wolfsburg, one got the very deep community connection VW had with its home city. And one also wondered how much the people of the city, and by extension, all of Germany, bore the inner turmoil of Dieselgate. But perhaps the most impactful conversation I had while I visited VW was with some of its engineers during lunchtime. It wasn't an arranged interview, this was just a chance encounter. And as we spoke, the way these engineers described the emission scandal, it became clear to me that the employees who perpetrated the Dieselgate scheme did so because they felt the company was being required to abide by a set of laws that were, and there's no delicate way to put this, stupid. They felt that the emissions requirements were impossible to meet on a continent that was otherwise very, very much dedicated to diesel as a method of fueling automobiles. And this stupidity was compounded by the unfortunate reality that the ultimate carbon footprint of manufacturing and replacing EV batteries was larger than the current footprint of diesel vehicles. Now, I had no way of confirming that assertion in the moment. As I like to say, I'm just an English major, and it seemed like an unkind thing to do to Google what they were saying on the spot. But it gave a lot of credence to the notion that within such a mammoth enterprise, a small group of highly influential people felt that the company was being victimized by poorly written law and decided not to comply with it. We all know what happened next. At Ethisphere, we talk a lot about the power of speak up culture as a way to call out misconduct underway. But more importantly, and as our Chief Strategy Officer Erica Salmon Burns so elegantly points out, speaking up is a way to call out small problems before they become big ones. The objections that VW engineers had to the diesel emission standards by which they had to operate were understandable, but their solution was clearly unacceptable. One will forever wonder if there had been a stronger speak up culture at VW at the time, could Dieselgate have been avoided? Could those concerns about emission standards have been channeled into greater innovation that would comply with the law and build a fresh, sustainable path to business success? Or could there have been a more robust conversation at all levels of the enterprise to understand and acknowledge the law and to socialize a universal acceptance of it? We'll never know for sure, but we do know that a strong speak up culture delivers powerful results for those organizations that cultivate them, and it better equips them to meet the challenges of changing regulatory, legal, and social expectations head on. According to the 2024 Ethical Culture Report, 93% of employees say they would report misconduct if they witnessed it, but when the moment of truth arrives, only 50% of employees actually follow through. The most commonly cited reasons for this are fear of retaliation, followed by a lack of confidence that if misconduct is reported, nothing will be done about it. We call this delta between intent and action the speak up gap, and it's probably the single most important statistic around when it comes to understanding why and how organizations can build stronger, better speak up cultures. Each year, 15% of employees witness what they believe to be misconduct, which means that on average, the speak up gap allows for as many as 75 acts of misconduct to go unreported annually per 1,000 employees. To put this in perspective, at an organization as large as VW was when Dieselgate broke, that would mean an estimated 46,125 acts of unreported misconduct, regardless of scope or severity, each year. The costs incurred by that kind of permissiveness towards misconduct includes, but is not limited to, lost productivity, dampened innovation, and of course, regulatory and legal penalties. But it doesn't have to be that way. Ethisphere data also shows that 83% of employees are aware that their employer prohibits retaliation against employees who report misconduct or participate in an investigation. Furthermore, 87% of employees believe their manager will uphold anti retaliation policies. And 77% of employees believe the organization as a whole will uphold anti retaliation policies. What this tells us, among other things, is how incredibly important it is for organizations to adequately position and prepare their managers to uphold their roles as the key juncture for organizational speak up culture. In speak up culture, as in all things related to ethics and compliance, managers matter. They are the ones to whom employees most commonly raise their concerns, and they are the ones in the best position to elevate those concerns so that they get addressed. But don't take it from me. Take it from the journey that Martin Winterkorn has undertaken. That is a fate no practitioner of business integrity would ever wish for themselves, their employees, their stakeholders, or the communities in which they live and work. And lest it seem like I'm being too hard on VW, an organization that I admire, that I believe has done remarkable work on the ethics and compliance front, and whose success is something that I think we all benefit from, let me leave you with a final anecdote from my trip to Germany. When I visited VW in 2016, I was given the delightful opportunity to drive one of its new sedans on the Autobahn from Wolfsburg to Hanover and then back to Berlin, where I was staying. The car had this cool heads up display on the dash that alerted me to a bad accident ahead of us that had closed the Autobahn. Now, were we in the United States, I would have simply taken the next exit and gotten off the road. After all, I'm from New Jersey, and if there's one thing I know how to do, it's cutting across a few lanes of traffic at a moment's notice. But I wasn't in New Jersey, I was in Germany, and I wasn't sure if a hasty, unannounced departure from my route was the right thing to do. I also didn't know if I would offend my hosts by deviating from our course, or if I would simply get us lost. But rather than ask the fellow from VW, who was in the car with me, I just kept quiet. And lo and behold, we got stuck on the Autobahn for 3 hours while crews cleared an overturned truck just a few kilometers ahead of us. I think about that moment a lot too, not just because I can make the oddball claim of having gone 0 kilometers an hour on a highway renowned for speed, but because my failure to speak up let a little problem become a big one, especially for the poor VW staffer riding alongside me, who had to inform his girlfriend that he would in fact be missing the big dinner they had planned for that night. The moral of the story is that for all things, big and small, speaking up is everyone's responsibility. It is every organization's challenge, but most of all, it is their opportunity to create a culture of ethics and integrity that builds massive, sustainable value in the long run. To read Ethisphere's 2024 Ethical Culture Report, please visit ethisphere.com/2024-culture-report, or simply hit the link in this episode's show notes. And for a wealth of helpful free resources on how you can build a stronger speak up culture within your own organization, please visit the Ethisphere Resource Center at ethisphere.com/resources. I'm Bill Coffin, and this has been the Ethicast. For more episodes, please visit the Ethisphere YouTube channel at youtube.com/ethisphere. And if this is your first time enjoying the show, please make sure to like and subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. Thanks for joining us. And until next time, remember, strong ethics is good business.